Thank you, Council, for having this special meeting. I think it's a pretty important meeting, and we thank you for doing that. Let me first put what I'm suggesting in context, both history and then of your previous discussions. Most of you were on the Council where you went through this, I guess, 2 years ago, and so you have a base of understanding that we'll work off, I think. As you know, the people of the state of California passed a referendum which made legal, at least in the state of California, medical access, access to medical marijuana. The city of San Diego had never passed an ordinance which would implement that, and I think that's way past due. Of course, if that were easy, we would have done it a lot earlier. It's not an easy issue. It's not an easy issue. And I think what the Council has wrestled with and what I have wrestled with and what you will continue, and hopefully to pass something, a balance. A balance on the one hand between a humanitarian concern for people who are suffering from pain and chronic illness, who their doctors have prescribed medical marijuana. And I know many of you and I have talked to hundreds of patients where this is the one drug that has helped them. And I think we have an obligation to provide access on just that humanitarian impulse, the humanitarian need for access to medical marijuana. On the other hand, we know that there are neighborhoods, every one of our neighborhoods, every one of our parents is concerned about the ill effects of establishing access to legal marijuana. And that is concern for their neighborhoods, concern for their children. And we have to try to balance those two. I mean, it's not an easy balance. So on the one hand, we would like to provide access. On the other hand, we don't want to impose on neighborhoods, and we certainly don't want to endanger our children. And that's the aim I think we might all share to, to various degrees of where we put that emphasis on. So taking it from, I think I would like to take it, Mr. President, from the former ordinance and make some comparisons between my suggestions and that. Because I think what I've tried to do in my suggestions is to both widen access and increase protections for neighborhoods and children. I've tried to do both, raise standards for both. On the one hand, the zoning suggestions widen the access. That is, we've gone, I think, from industrial only to industrial and commercial. That, by definition would widen the access. On the other hand, we have put more protections on for neighborhoods. Let me just give a few. Number one, we have, of course, made distance requirements between schools and playgrounds, places where our children would gather. There are distance requirements that no dispensary can be within 600 feet of that. They cannot be within 600 feet of each other. So there's no concentration of such dispensaries. So we've made, I think, some attempt to make sure that the children and neighborhoods have less of an impact than if we didn't have those, certainly, if those restrictions. We have suggested a permit fee that would make it, I think, a little bit more difficult for establishments we might not have as equal confidence in, and that permit fee and the suggested unlike the previous one, the registration of every individual at the Department of Health of the county to get a registration card that they will go through the Department of Health with the doctor's recommendation, and that will be in a state registry, which no dispensary could distribute unless somebody was registered in that registry, and which their card they have to personally get at the Department of Health. So those are the kinds of things we have, I think, added to be a tougher kind of restrictions that will give neighborhoods, I think, some sense of security, that we are protecting them and their children, because I think we all want to do that. This was so those are my suggestions. We've, as I said, tried to both increase the access for those who are suffering, but increase the protections for those who we know need them, mainly our children and the quality of life in our neighborhoods. So I think I'm going to stop there and answer any questions, or be available certainly after the public testifies, unless there are any specific questions right now, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Council President.
Council President, you're the mayor.
I won't make any comment.
No, we'll both refrain. I don't see any council members at this time, but we will hear from the public, and appreciate you being here.
Again, I appreciate your time and efforts at this meeting. It's a debate worthy of having. It's an important one. Everyone's of goodwill here, and we can modify it to take into account, any of the as we try to struggle with this balance that is hard to reach. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.